Welcome back everyone to another Let's Play of Final Fantasy XV. That is XV as in 15. Now you guys are probably wondering, I just completed this mission with our Ardino. Now you're probably wondering, as we're about to see, why am I level 38 at this point in the game? So that's the real question though. That is the real question that we are trying to assess. You see, most games at this point spike in difficulty. You start really low with your tutorials, and then as you get higher and higher in the game, you start realizing, hey, there's a difficulty spike. It's trying to be difficult with me, so I need to actually get good. So of course, at chapter 4, I need to say, yo, we need to actually be at level 40, or at least somewhere close to that, because each chapter is supposed to represent what level cap you're supposed to be. Don't argue at me in the comment section below. I know what I'm talking about. Now, you want to come at me and tell me what's the best part of these games that I play, especially with Final Fantasy XV? It's these chapter loading screens. I love these chapter loading screens. They take the necessary amount of time. They take as long as they need to be to tell you something valuable and something very important in the story. The budget did not allow this level of storytelling to be told through the cutscenes in Final Fantasy XV. You need this in order to establish yourself in the universe and in the lore of Final Fantasy XV. So of course, we're getting a lot of backdrop and we're getting a good view of how exactly the video and the game is going to be. This is necessary because I love the length. Like I said before, I love the length that this video is right now, especially with the loading screen. The loading screen can last as long as it needs to, because let me tell you something, I'm picking up a lot of information in this one loading screen. And that loading screen was indeed the blessing of the gods. This game can read my mind. I love it so far. Let's see what's gonna happen right now. Now you see, I love this part of the game because you really don't even have to play the game. The game plays for you. All you need to do is hold the right trigger and the car drives itself. The only time you need to put any actual input into the game is to make these sharp turns like right here. Oh Lord. Oh boy, that would have been a doozy. I'm telling you right now, that could have resulted in my HP going to 0 and my fuel gauge going to E. That turn right there, it was almost impossible to make. But I love these moments because it takes control away from the player and makes you realize this is the world of Final Fantasy. You're not here to drive cars. You're not here to fight awesome battles. You're here to enjoy the view and follow progressive storytelling. I love where this is going. And you want to know what my favorite part about this portion of the game is? It gives you a break knowing that, hey, you know, what you just drove was a really long time. In case you need a 5-minute break, you could take it right over here and save your progress. The game, the developers thought about you this entire time. They knew that driving for that long was going to get you tired. So of course, they gave you a rest point and they let you save up your data so that you can, guess what? Guess what you do the next day? You go ahead and drive some more. Riveting gameplay, 10 out of 10. But before we do that, we hear on the radio thingamajigger that basically Luna Freya, the princess that is going to be knocking it up with Noctis, get the joke, knocking it up with Noctis, we find out Luna Freya is basically the second or third coming of Jesus Christ. She's lining up people, healing them, and basically sending them on their way, bringing the next ill person in there. Let's face it, she is, so Luna Freya, this gal right here is the second coming. But I'm really glad that they got rid of that cutscene within the span of 2 minutes, because now we're back to the gameplay. We are playing Final Fantasy XV4, and that is these driving sequences. I love these driving sequences. Like I said before, there's the thing called smart steering. That's right, S-M-A-R-T, smart steering. It basically drives the damn car for you. I love this portion of the game. No combat, no expensive cutscene, just a necessary long drive down a Kentucky highway, down Route 66. And let me tell you something right now. This is what I played Final Fantasy XV for. 10 out of 10. And then the game goes and pulls a freaking touchdown out in left field. Now we're in control of the actual characters. I'm telling you right now, this was the most boring part of the damn game, at least up until this point. I don't want to be controlling these characters. I'd rather take in the view and see what exactly is going on in the world of Final Fantasy XV. So we walk all the way over here just to see Noctis get pierced in the chest with a magical sword. And as he has other magical swords basically forming around him, it makes you wonder, what exactly are we doing? Why is Noctis having all these swords piercing through his chest? This is a very important scene, and you know what? I gotta say, I love it. But then the armored colossal titan gets a little PO'd, makes one of the platforms give away, and Noctis starts hanging over the edge of a cliff as Gladio grabs him. Right here, the best part of the game, this quick time event. I love it. This is what, again, the car chase sequences and these quick time events is what I play Final Fantasy XV for. Now you see, as I traverse through the level, you might see a few scenes basically where Noctis is shielding his eyes from the BS that is around him. I don't blame him. I don't want to see these muddy ass textures all over my game. I want to be back in the Regalia cruising down memory lane with my bromies. But of course, I have to be shielding my eyeballs from these muddy browns and these piss greens. And it's just garbage. It's freaking garbage. I don't like this at all. But finally, the developers decided to grow up here and realize that, hey, we need to actually make a game and stop putting the players in these BS situations. We finally get another great gameplay moment where Noctis has to shimmy across a ledge. This is the most important part in the entire game, because for all you know, Noctis can fall to his death and it's game over. His HP is gonna go to 0 and that's it. Over and done with. There's nothing beyond that point. So, and it's even worse because Noctis is getting his migraines at this point as well. You can see Noctis gripping his head because he's like, yo, my dude, I'm swimming across a freaking cliff like 58 billion feet above the ground and I'm getting these damn migraines. Not only that, but you're about to see something amazing right now. The colossal armored titan from Attack on Juju Season 3 comes out of nowhere. His hands try to grab on Noctis, but of course he cannot reach Noctis because, let's face it, he just wants to give a good handshake to Noctis. But Noctis, of course, being the pissy little kid that he is, of course, keeps saying that, yo, I got a migraine, I can't be doing this right now, let me shimmy across this rock even further. So of course, we have Noctis continuing to shimmy across the rock, and I cannot tell you guys how important, how riveting this moment of the game is. Look at all the backdrop, look at all the lore that's being established. You can see Gladio offering a hand to Noctis at this point, throwing him like a piece of garbage across the gap, and then right here, catching at him at the last minute. I freaking love this. The Colossal Titan cannot get a hold of these two because of their bond. Again, that shimmy rock scene easily tops what I've experienced so far in the game up until this point. Like I said before, 10 out of freaking 10. But then the developers take 8 steps backwards and do the muddy texture scene again. But you know what? I'm glad, because someone hacked into this game's ROM and basically had Gladio speak of what the fans wanted to say to Noctis from day one. You have Gladio just basically pick up Noctis from his shore and basically tell him, yo, you better pick up the pace, boy. I swear to God, I'm gonna beat the living crap out of you if you keep making me walk through these muddy ass textures. I love that one of the developers actually hacked into this game's ROM system and basically had Gladio speak his mind. It's like as if there's an artificial intelligence inside of Gladio, having him experience what we experience as the gamers, and then have him reiterate what we're saying in our minds as we play through the game. I love this. Like I said before, 10 out of 10. And then to make sure that Final Fantasy XV is modern and hip with the kids, you have Noctis answering his phone. Riveting. 10 out of 10. And then we're back to this boring ass gameplay where I could basically one-hit KO most of the fighters at this point. I don't understand this difficulty spike. If the developers wanted this to be a difficulty spike, why am I level 40 and these enemies are level 18? This is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know about you, but 18 in Japanese is not the same as level 40. So I don't know what the developers were thinking at this point in the game. Right now, that 10 out of 10 is dipping down to around a 4. I don't understand this. Now at this point, the Neon Genesis Evangelion monster is so sick of Noctis's BS, he finally decides to give him a 1-2 KO, punches him right off the cliff, and then of course Noctis, like, he teleports. He just teleports. But then a complete 180. The monster says he has a fungus underneath his foot and he wants Noctis to wipe it off. Noctis, of course, scrapes as much of the dead skin off the monster's foot as he can and then parries it away from his body. Again, this is what I play Final Fantasy XV for. You continue to do it, but Gladio decides, hey, you gotta have the man pay for this type of, care. This ain't no free manicure or whatever, so you gotta make sure that we get the rest of the party in on this. At this point in the game, the objective is to run away from the man's athlete's foot. Again, riveting gameplay. I love how you technically have no control on whether or not the monster smacks you across the face as you walk across this section of the game. It really shows that in life, you have no control over what's gonna happen in your surroundings. Again, 10 out of 10. And then Final Fantasy XV takes a page from Uncharted 4, running away from a disaster, but then Noctis starts debating on whether or not he should run, but then he continues his sprint onward towards the finish line with explosions in the background, Michael Bay explosions, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 10 out of 10. I cannot say that enough. And at this point, Noctis is sick of this monster's BS, waves at him for a fist bump, and the monster's like, yeah, you know what? One punch, boy. Let's go. And of course, Noctis goes crumbling down to the ground like the sad little man he really is. And then at this point, the objective of the game is to scrape off all the crustaceans and barnacle booty off of this man's arm and legs. This is the best part of the game. I freaking love it. 10 out of 10. And then you progress to the last hit of the game where Ignis and Prompto and Gladio are like, yo, you know what? It's time to end this. This man's arm is beyond saving. Get rid of this crustacean and shatter the boy's arm with this giant ass blade. Bless these characters for mutilating a colossal, peaceful god that was just trying to fist bump Noctis not too long ago. And then the monster explodes into fairy dust. The end.